and gentlemen.
I'm full of optimism.
Einstein's theory of relativity.
We're still seeing it quite well through that haze. T-minus 37 seconds.
Fight with growing confidence.
E equals MC.
That all men are created equal.
About the future innovations.
And growing strength in the air.
Tear down this wall. Head on. Something's happening. Coming up on staging.
This is Finding Your Frequency with your hosts, Jeff Spinard and Ryan Treasure. It's time to speak up, share your voice, and hear from the thought leaders.
Welcome to Finding Your Frequency. I am your host, Jeff Spinard. I am the CEO and president of World Talk Radio, home to the VoiceAmerica Talk Radio and TV networks. Joining me, of course, my co-host, colleague, partner in crime, Mr. Ryan Treasure. Ryan.
Guess who's back? Back again.
Back again.
Yes. Still good to have you back, Jeff.
It has been ages, my friend. I almost forgot what I was doing.
You rolled in here and you rattled that off like you just did it yesterday.
Like a pro, huh?
Yeah, it was good, man.
Almost like I knew what I was doing.
You think you've been doing radio before or something?
I think so. So what's been going on? You've been holding down the fort for a few months now.
Yeah.
While I've been on hiatus and doing my thing.
Dude,
how's it been going, man?
We've been doing lots and lots of recordings and lots of live shows and, full hour podcasts, micro podcasts, 30-minute ones. Harry's been hooking us up with guests. And yeah, man, it's been a fun little ride. I'm learning all kinds of stuff about all kinds of stuff. It's been wonderful.
Some major numbers, too, by the way. I mean, when we're getting into the, 5 digits, almost approaching the 6 digits, that's nice. And, we're going to keep climbing with our audience as we move along. We got some real hot guests coming up. Even today, we got a hot guest.
Yeah, and all you guys that are listening, if you're listening on like Spotify or iTunes or any of those podcatchers, yes, we're on iHeartRadio now. To make sure you subscribe so you can get the show every time downloaded directly to your device. And then, of course, we're always on VoiceAmerica.com.
Don't be afraid to call in if you got any questions. We're always here to take those calls.
472-5788. Anytime you can call in. And man, last week's show was really cool. We did kind of like an 80s, what was it like to grow up in the 80s? And Andy and I did two episodes of that back to back on 2 Fridays. And man, it was interesting because there was a lot of stuff that happened in the 80s and 90s, which we're like in the middle of dealing with right now. Iran shooting missiles at Saudi Arabia, or they. That's what we think, but nobody really knows if they really did it because they're not taking responsibility for it.
Iran is supposed to be, if that ever happens, Iran is supposed to be a world war that is to end all wars. At least that's biblically speaking.
Correct.
So,
well, and I was thinking about it too because you have like Iran is friends with Russia, right? And Iran has more backing in Iraq as well. So you would have this multinational Iraq, Iran, Russia versus the United States, Saudi Arabia, the UN coalition. It would literally probably turn into World War III. So if you guys are listening to the show, I urge restraint.
All right, let's back off on the war talk. How about a little sports, my friend?
Oh, man, your Patriots are just whooping them up.
I had to say it only because of the Patriots, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
they are just kicking ass.
My Cardinals are doing okay for having a rookie quarterback and a rookie head coach. We haven't had a win yet, but we've only had 1 loss and a tie, so I guess a tie is better than a loss.
Well, I'll tell you what, that first game that he played, coming back from a deficit and at least tying the game, it gave him a little bit of confidence. Yeah. That loss didn't do him any justice this week, but we'll see what's coming. Who you guys got this week?
Oh, Carolina Panthers without Cam Newton.
Okay, is that good? That's good, right?
It's really good.
Obviously, Cam is a good one to get out of the picture.
Yeah, he's good.
I don't know how the rest of the team is.
I think this is a winnable one for us for sure. Even if Cam was playing, I think it's a winnable one for us because I think our offense is finally starting to gel and come together. Kyler Murray is the only quarterback in the history of all quarterbacks to start his 2 first rookie games and have over 300 yards passing in each game.
Huh.
So that's a pretty cool stat.
You're just a fountain of information. I love it. Hey, let's say any given Sunday.
Hey, I spend a lot of time on NFL.com.
You know what? I have not spent as much time as I may have liked. But, again, I only follow the Patriots. The rest I don't really care about. So
Yeah, you guys gave Miami a shellacking.
oh my God, it was brutal.
You guys gave them a
kicked,
shellacking.
Pittsburgh's butt too.
You shellacked Miami so bad they fired their starting quarterback and is now having the second string guy start for the third week because of how bad Brian Fitzpatrick was.
Yeah, you get right out of there.
How do you go 2 games and not score any points? Not even 1 point.
That's pretty brutal.
Not even a field goal.
Yeah, that warrants a change in management or coaching. So
Yeah, and that quarterback that they're going to put in for Miami was the former first-round draft pick of the Cardinals from the last year, Josh Rosen. So now he's in Miami. So and it's funny because it happened to him last year too. He was playing it in Arizona, and then Glass Joe or whatever was the quarterback. I can't even remember his name. That's how bad he was terrible. And then he played like 3 games. He got hurt, and then he had to come in and play for the rest of the season. So it's like the same season again for him on a different team. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sam Bradford. Sam Glassford.
Glassford, there it is. Sam Bradford. Was that Detroit? Where did Sam play? New York?
No, he was on the Cardinals last year.
Oh, okay.
He's
He
retired.
didn't start there.
He's retired now.
Yeah, he retired before he started.
Man, we got a good show today.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. When do we want to talk to Mr. G. Keith Alexander? Speaking of football, G. Keith is in New York, which, of course, the New York Giants, who have taken out my Patriots on a couple of occasions.
It's a Coke.
Yeah. So G. Keith Alexander is our guest at this time. G. Keith, voiceover talent, has brought some of R&B's, hip hop and music people to the forefront. He's just New York's #1 voiceover talent. Won many awards. This gentleman really has a big name in the New York City area, and of course, I think across the country. So
yeah, and that's why I said it's a Coke, because we were talking about football, and in this last Super Bowl, he was the voice of some of the content in the Coke commercials.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So also, he did Fox 5's New York's The McCreary Report, and I think G. Keith is still active today, right, doing voiceover work. I know he runs the Voiceover Academy as well. So if you need to learn how to do voiceovers and that, he can teach you how to do it.
He is the man. He is the man. Okay, are we?
G. Keith.
G. Keith, welcome to the show, my friend.
Well, thank you so very, very much. You guys make me sound so good, I want to kiss myself.
Well,
I'd pay money to see you try to do that.
Depends what you're talking about. Kiss, what part he's kissing himself,
Oh, yes, I guess you can kiss your own hand. I'm thinking like try to kiss your face. Lick your ear.
I kiss my own ass. Well, it's good to have you on the show, G. Keith. We have several reasons for having you on today, but listen, why don't you talk to the audience and give a little background on who G. Keith is?
Well, okay. I'm always bashful and shy,
Yeah.
but I'll tell you this. I've been in New York radio for probably, since the 70s. I've been on about 5 of the top radio stations here in New York as a DJ, and I've done voiceovers and TV commercials in fact, about over 1,000 national radio TV commercials. I heard Ryan talking about the Coke spot that I was on in the Super Bowl, and I've had some films. The latest film I'm in is The Intern with Robert De Niro and Anne Hathaway and Rene Russo, where I walk in with Robert De Niro on the first day of the job. And,
I remember you in that.
And I just recently did a very big video game. Voice for a video game, but they made me sign an NDA, so I can't speak on which one it is just yet until they tell me it's okay.
Doesn't that drive you nuts? Because you're like, I did all this cool work, but I can't talk about it.
Can you say when the release is?
No, I can't even say that.
Oh,
they
really?
told me, don't even tell people you were here. So,
You've already said too much.
I think there's some men in black knocking on your door right now.
In fact, if they hear me talking right now, I'll probably be arrested.
Yeah, all right. We'll put that segment under lock and key.
Code 4.
But so that's pretty much what I've done, and right now, of course, we're working on launching this incredible multi-platform media network, and we're going to launch it. Guess where? We're going to launch it on VoiceAmerica.
Well, all right. Powered by World Talk Radio, Voice America. I love it. Yes, we are in the works. G. Keith, you've done so much in your career that now it's time for you to have your own platform where you're running the show, calling the shots. I think it's going to be very exciting.
I agree, and I'm so glad that I'm partnering with you guys, because you guys have been doing this for 20 years or so, and you've got over 300 hosts and 500 radio shows, and in 140 markets. So hey, there's no one else better for me to be with.
I can't agree with you more.
Yeah, G. Keith, it's been an interesting ride the last year, just working with you and your team, and really finding our frequency in this digital space of radio. And I really love what we're doing and what we're creating. It's really bringing together, not just radio guys, but culture and different aspects to the table that I think will be advantageous. I think the listeners will really gravitate towards the content, and I think it's going to be wonderful, man.
Well,
thank you.
I think that's absolutely something we should touch base on right now is, first of all, you haven't even mentioned what the name of the network is going to be.
Yeah, well, I was waiting for the drum roll from you guys.
Well, there it comes. There it is. What do you got?
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together. We're getting ready to launch a multi-platform media network called Harlem America.
Beautiful. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. Harlem America.
And we'll be talking to the world from the heart and soul of New York.
There you go.
So, G. Keith, I think our listeners want to know, you've been in this radio industry and the media and entertainment business for such a long time. You're in the Broadcasters Hall of Fame, correct?
I'm in the Paley Center, which here in New York, the Radio TV Museum, that's what it used to be called. And Paley, the guy that started CBS, he has this museum. So they've got my radio archive in the museum, and I'm also some of my voiceover work is in the Smithsonian under the Carolyn Jones archive.
That's awesome.
No, that's cool.
So how did you find your frequency in radio when you got started? Like where were you? What were you doing when that was where you how did you step into that?
Right.
Well, Ryan, it's a very interesting story, and it's going to be part of my story for recruiting folks for Harlem America.
Nice.
I was in college. I'd gotten out of the Marine Corps, and I got a scholarship to Fordham University here in New York. I'm from Chicago originally. And while I was I read in a newspaper where you too could be a disc jockey. So I said, okay. So I went to audition for this job at one of the classical radio stations, and it was owned by the New York Times, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I saw the guys on the other end of the glass after they gave me a script to read. They were laughing at me because I couldn't pronounce, at that time, there were names like Tchaikovsky and of course I could pronounce Mozart, but they had a lot of classical artists that I didn't know about. So these guys laughed at me. So I felt dejected. I went home, and just so happens a few weeks later there was another ad in the newspaper about being in radio, but this time this guy, he bought a block of radio time to about 12 hours, and he was selling 15-minute increments. So I would buy every Tuesday morning from 5:15 a.m. To 5:30 a.m., long enough to say hello, play 3 records, and say goodbye. So I took that audio cassette to school every morning, and the kids would laugh at me. Oh, G. Keith, you're not going to be a disc jockey. Forget about it. And so when I heard that this other radio station was looking for DJs, I took the cassette tape, to the radio station, and the guy, he listened, he laughed a little bit, but he says, "Hey, you know what, kid?
Tell you what.
I'm going to hire you to be my librarian. You'll take care of the music, and when I take off the air, you'll sit in for me on the weekends." And that's how I got started.
Oh, that's awesome.
What a great story.
You know, I always think, and Jeff, I know you'll appreciate this because we've been in this business of brokered programming for such a long time. It always goes back to that for radio. In the history of radio, you go backwards in time, and the commercial type of radio that we have now, that wasn't how radio started. Radio started back in the 40s and 50s. Everybody was buying time from somebody else, right, in order to get their record heard, to get their message heard, whether like politics or music or whatever it was. And it's really cool. If you watch, there's a scene in "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" Remember where those guys sing with George Clooney? So there's a part in there, and they have to go buy radio time so that way they can do this thing for the political. And I always just gravitate towards the history of radio in that space. And here we are in 2020, dang near 70 years later, 80 years later.
It really is your shortcut in first of all, but it's such a learning experience.
Sure.
And if you do well, obviously, we've watched people grow and expand, become, almost legendary in the business from something that they started way back in the day where they bought some time.
You're right.
And I was going to say, if you go back in time, I think there's some legendary folks that started that way. And I can't remember the guy's name. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Larry King,
right? Larry King
started that way?
Yeah, he got his start. He was buying his own time, and that's how he kickstarted his career.
Yep.
I think he had a couple of bucks in a Cadillac.
He bought some time for his wife, too.
Yep.
So she could do a show.
It's definitely a way to come in if ABC or CBS or ESPN, if they're not coming after you looking for you, then it's your next step to getting into radio.
That's exactly right. And you know what? Everybody has a message. There's always something to say. People want to get out there. They want to be heard. They want to take that next step in their career. Whatever it is. I mean, radio is that platform.
Yeah.
It just brings you to that whole new level. And J. Keith, I know you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yes, and
of course,
I'm anxious to launch Harlem America because there's so many business people in the community who would like to be able to put their voice, their message, talk about their service and products. And now with the technology, as you guys know, you can be heard globally. With your message.
Yep.
I'm just reading this too. When Larry King started his first job, where he was actually getting paid as a disc jockey in 1957 in Miami, where he was at, he was doing afternoon newscasts and sportscasting for a big fat whopping $50 a week.
Back then, that was good money. So, Keith, let's go back to Harlem America for a second.
Sure.
You obviously have a vision with Harlem America. Talk to us a little bit about how you envision the start of Harlem America and where you see it kind of expanding out to.
Well, excuse me. We're trying to launch it by at least have a soft launch at the end of this year, which will be the beginning of January, and we see it expanding into quite a large network because we're going to have our 3 channels, which will be entertainment, empowerment, and health and wellness, and certainly there are enough potential clients that we've already identified here in Harlem. After doing so much research, we've identified over 1,300 potential clients.
Wow.
And that's just from here in Harlem, not to mention the various national sponsors and things that we're going after. So we're going to eventually expand it into this major platform, and it will have three components to it. It will have the media part, of course, but then it will also have the community part, because Harlem is such a vivacious community, and it's growing by leaps and bounds, and resources are here, and there's some gentrification as well. So we want to be able to showcase and promote the rich culture here in Harlem and historic culture. And then there's the other component, which is the destination. So because Harlem is not just a community, it's also a destination where tourists come from all over the world. They come into Harlem. So we want to be able to speak to the tourists as well, and bring them into Harlem, so that they can spend their dollars and help to help economic growth
economy, right.
in Harlem as well.
Yep.
So that's what Harlem America is about. To me, Harlem America and Harlem is the most soulful place on earth, and that's what we're going to market to the whole world.
I love it.
Whenever I watch, movies and TV shows, and they depict Harlem, there's always this soulful sense of legendary music and jazz and art and culture.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm happy to be a part of this, and I think it's going to be great. We're essentially building a business, right? And we know how hard it is to build a business, right, G. Keith?
Oh yes.
So I want to tell you how we can make building a business easier, right? Growing a business is hard, especially if you're wasting hours every day moving data from emails to spreadsheets to your CRM or whatever. Shouldn't that kind of stuff just happen without lifting a finger? Well, our sponsor today, Zapier, can help with that. When you're running your own business, your to-do list is never ending, right? You could automate many of those tasks that you do, but you don't know how, and that's where Zapier comes in. It is the easiest way to automate your work, connecting your business software that handles work for you so you can focus on the things that matter most. Like for us, right? Focusing on radio and connections and people, and less time having to, press the buttons.
Right.
No more wasting times on tasks that could be automated, because that's exactly what Zapier was built to do. If you go to our special link, zapier.com/frequency, connect the apps that you use the most, and let Zapier take it from there. Right now through November, try Zapier free by going to our special link, zapier.com/frequency. That's zapier.com/frequency for your free 14-day trial, zapier.com/frequency. Join more than 4.5 million people who are saving an average of 40 hours a month by using Zapier to automate your business tasks.
That's impressive.
Yeah. I used Zapier several times here for Voice America World Talk Radio to just move information from like Google Drive to, a CRM input, or moving leads that might generate from social media directly into your CRM or into a spreadsheet or some type of those things. So it's a really, really cool platform. So go check it out, zapier.com/frequency for your 14-day free trial.
Save yourself some time.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Every time I talk to you guys, I always learn something about technology and efficiency I didn't know before. Thank you very much for that, Ryan.
Oh, you're welcome. And big shout out and thank you to Zapier for sponsoring this episode of Finding Your Frequency.
Wow. Okay.
And yes, you know what, G. Keith, you're going to learn a heck of a lot more as we move forward. G. Keith, is going to step up. He's going to be running his own network and, of course, working with Voice America. We're going to help to build Harlem America, and I really can't wait to see what we can accomplish. So on that note, G. Keith, we're going to take a little bit of a break here.
Okay.
Ryan, guys, check us out all over social media at Radio Ryan 1, at Jeff Spinney 2, and of course we're on Twitter for the main Voice America account at Voice America TRN Talk Radio Network. You're listening to the Voice America Variety Channel right here on the worldwide leader in live internet talk radio, voiceamerica.com. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with the legend, G. Keith Alexander.
The Internet's #1 talk station. #1 talk station. VoiceAmerica.com.
Want an insider's pass to everything that goes on in Hollywood? Join Summer Helene every week for Behind the Scenes. Summer Helene is known as the Duchess of Hollywood because she knows the insiders, legends, and celebs, and brings the stories, the gossip, and the backstage scoop. It's the real Hollywood, though, so this program is for adults only. Behind the Scenes can be heard live every Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time and 7 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Variety Channel.
Join Voice America and host Alex Fullick for the DRJ Fall 2019 in Phoenix at the JW Marriott Desert Ridge as we broadcast live Monday, September 30th from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific Time. The topics of the event are innovations in managing risk and resiliency. This is part of a 3-day event featuring the top industry experts designed to keep your organization at the forefront of risk management. For more information, visit drj.com/fall 2019 or join us live on voiceamerica.com/live events.
The Voice America Talk Radio Network is on Instagram. Make sure you follow us and comment on our pictures from behind the scenes at our radio shows, live events, and around the network. We want to see what you have to share as well. Check us out on Instagram at Voice America Talk Radio.
Stimulating talk
gets those synapses in the brain firing really fast.
all the time. The #1 internet talk station where your opinion counts. VoiceAmerica.com.
Something happening coming up on staging.
You're tuned into Finding Your Frequency with hosts Jeff Spinard and Ryan Treasure. Connect with the show. Call in to 1-866-472-5788. That's 1-866-472-5788.
And welcome back to Finding Your Frequency. I'm your host, Jeff Spinard.
I'm co-host Ryan Treasure, and woo, that was loud in my ears.
Yeah, it was. Josh, you're just blowing us out over here. Good job, though.
Yes. I'd like the music. I mean, big shout out to my cousin for rocking that music track for us.
That's right. Yep.
Yes.
Excellent track. We had to get rid of our
Lunatic Fringe.
Lunatic Fringe, right? What's the band?
Oh man, I can't even remember.
Radio something.
They did like one album.
Yeah. No, that was the only song I knew from them. So
yeah. It was a good one. I think
a great tune.
He did it. My cousin Paul Duplantis. He did a pretty good job of trying to recreate it without making the same song.
Yes, exactly.
I think we need to have him on the show one of these days. He's into this crazy thing now called the Convergent Connected Web, where he's starting a business around it, and so I think that might be a good topic.
I think so because I have no idea what that is.
I don't either. He's got a whole
Keith,
white
you got
paper.
any idea?
G. Keith, do you know what the Emergent Connected Web is?
No, unless you're telling me that someone has created now another extension that we can veer off to on the web.
Well, that's probably the case. Ryan and I have no idea what that is yet either. So
I think it's like a decentralized version of the web that's not hosted on servers that Google controls. Something similar to that.
Okay. All right.
But anyways, let's not nerd out about connected convergent web. We can do that.
I can't nerd out anyway, so that'd be a very short conversation.
Yeah, it'd be the cousin probably spending the whole hour trying to explain to us what it is so we can understand.
Well, let's talk about something that G. Keith knows about, and that's New York radio. Ryan,
Yes.
you had some questions?
I do. Again, I'm kind of a history nerd in some respects.
You are.
I love history. And with such a tenure that you've had in radio in the biggest market in the world, I don't think there's another market bigger than New York City. Is that correct? I mean, even London is not as big as New York City from a radio or media market, right?
Well, you're absolutely right. New York is and has always been the largest market in the world. One of the reasons is, a lot of radio people would love to migrate to New York radio. In fact, it's a goal of a lot of people wherever they start to try to get into New York radio because it's the media capital of the world. There's always something happening here. The the entertainers have to come through New York in order to build up their own careers and businesses. So the New York radio, in fact, a lot of the celebrities and people that I've met throughout the year, I would not have, or years, I would not have met them had I been in some other market outside of New York. Maybe L.A. you might get some of the celebrities coming through there.
L.A.'s number 2,
from
right?
Other parts of the world.
Yeah, LA is not a number 1 market; it's a number 2 market, I believe. I think LA and Chicago are both number 2 markets, correct?
Something like that. It used to be. It used to be that Chicago was number 2 and LA was number 3. I don't know what it is now, but because I've been here in New York, a lot of the entertainers, be them radio, music or actors or authors, they all wanted to come to New York radio to have their interviews so that they could tell the rest of the stations around the country, well, we just got interviewed on a radio station in New York. So that would validate them. Right. So New York has always been a large radio market. And plus, for many years, you had ABC Radio coming out of New York, which, gave New York that cachet.
Is that what makes New York the number 1 market? I mean, is it just the size? I mean, when you get 22 million people in the New York City metro, I mean, those are huge numbers. Is that what makes the rank?
Well, now that's a good question. I don't know specifically what makes it outside of the fact that all the media is here and the action and entertainment and all that stuff is here. However, I will say this because you just made me decide I'm going to brag a little bit. When I was on Disco 92 WKTU back in the 80s, which we went from number 1. We went from number 22 to number 1 in 30 days, and we knocked out WABC, which had been the juggernaut in radio.
Yeah, no kidding.
I was doing 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., and the Boston Globe came down to New York to interview me, and come to find out, my show, I had a 22 share of the audience.
Ooh,
a 22
that's
share.
Big.
That's huge. Nowadays, here in New York, you're lucky if you can get a 3 share or 4 share.
Yeah.
But back in those days,
5 or 6, you're doing fantastic.
Yeah. So that was a ranking that I had, but the station was number 1, and we benefited from that. But
when was that? When was that? Was that like in
back in the 80s?
Was it in the 80s? You said.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, that was in the 80s. Like we started KTU in 78, and 78 is when we went from 22 to number 1 in 30 days because they changed the music from mellow music to disco music, and disco was just coming in. We had Studio 54 was hot. We had all the roller skating rinks where people were in every night dancing on skates.
Oh, you were in it. You were in the heart.
Yeah, so then it lasted. It lasted a few years until that guy Dahl in Chicago, Rick Dahl, I think his name was. He had the people bring the disco records to Comiskey Park, and they threw them on the field, and he took a steamroller and rolled over them, and it started the end of disco.
Yep. Wow.
What an interesting time to be in New York on the radio.
Kidding.
I mean, like that was like Party Central in the 70s and 80s, man.
Yes.
Disco, Studio 54.
Yeah.
I mean, gee, Keith, you were right in it, weren't you?
Oh, let me tell you, I was in it night and day. I lived parties. I went to all the hot spots. If there was a restaurant opening, I was there. And during that time, right before MTV came on the air, they called me and said, gee, Keith, we're looking for VJs. And I said, what's a VJ? And they said, a video jock. I said, really? They said, yeah, we'd like for you to come down. We're starting this network called MTV, and we'd like for you to audition. So I thought I'd go down looking like Venus Flytrap from the WKRP. So I had on this I had on this butter green Johnny Versace leather outfit.
Yeah.
I had a black mink coat, and I had a baseball cap with the scrambled eggs on top, like the Navy commanders wear. And I went down with 2 young ladies, and so they put me in front of the teleprompter, and they had these names of rock guys that I had never heard before. So I get in front of the teleprompter, and I'm reading the teleprompter, doing my audition, and some of these guys I had never seen, So when I finished, the guy said, "Well, G. Keith, you have exactly what we want, and we'll get back to you in 2 weeks." And I said, "Okay, great." So I left, and then 2 weeks later they called me and said, "Well, G. Keith, we started to go in a different direction." And so I was from R&B and jazz. They ended up hiring this guy, J.J. Jackson, who had come from the rock
I remember
world.
that guy.
Yep.
Yeah. So J.J. was the guy that they hired instead of me.
Huh.
Oh wow, I remember that too. I was like a little kid when that was going on.
I want to see the outfit, by the way. You got any pictures?
Well, you know what? I have a picture of me with the black mink coat. Unfortunately, I went into a restaurant with it on and hung it up in the back of the restaurant along with the 2 ladies who had their fur coats. So we hung them up in the back. And at the end of the meal, I went to the back to get their coats and mine. Well, someone had walked out with my coat, but their coats were there. So I don't have the coat anymore, but I do have a photograph of me in the coat.
Yeah, okay. You need to send that to me. Send me a shot. I got to see it.
Hey, so what is Radio Row in New York? What is that? Can you explain that?
Radio Row. I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, I mean, isn't like WCBS or whatever has their own like street named after them, right?
NBC.
Oh,
so it's like Radio Row. It's like a row of like a lot of those media stations, right?
Yeah, well, okay, on 6th Avenue, Avenue of the Americas, at one time, they ABC, CBS, all those big corporations like that, NBC, they all had their radio stations there. NBC still is in Rockefeller Center, so they've got theirs there. I think ABC has moved theirs from there, and CBS may still be there, but because of that, it was named years ago Radio Row.
Right.
That's awesome. Right. I think the Radio Row actually got its name in like the 60s, something like that. I'm looking at a website here where it's kind of talking about the history of Radio Row.
Yeah, that used to be it. Was that you? I just heard Jeff say WNBC.
Yes, WNBC.
Yeah, I used to, when I first got in radio, I used to follow him. Because I thought I thought he was a great talent, and he used to ask the women, "Are you naked?"
Yeah.
Whenever they called in.
The old shock jock, right?
Yeah, that was like the epitome of shock jock for sure.
Yeah.
If you've seen the movie, Howard Stern.
No, that wasn't Howard Stern. That was before Howard Stern. It was what's the guy's name?
Oh, Imus.
Imus in the morning.
Yeah,
That's it.
Yeah.
Don Imus.
We used to have him on satellite for our morning shows over at the AM station. Jeff and I worked at.
I was never a big Imus fan. No. Howard Stern I liked. Imus, I can take him and leave him.
For me being an audio engineer, the only thing I was happy about Imus is it came over on satellite, and I didn't actually have to run the board.
Yeah,
I just pushed the button and let it come through.
Syndicate. Nice. So you used to follow Imus?
Well, yeah. I mean, when I used to be a fan of his because I thought he was, really unique when he first came on.
Sure.
And then he got in some trouble, and I think he left the station for a while or something, and so I kind of got interested in somebody else, and but he was one of my icons that I would listen to.
Nice. Who else makes the G. Keith list?
Well, Howard Stern is interesting, but I couldn't listen to Howard all the time, and I only listened to him. I only listened to him because one day I was walking down the street, and Howard and Robin whom I had never met. They were walking towards me, and Robin stopped real quick and said, "G. Keith Alexander?" And I said, "Yes." She says, "Howard, this is G. Keith Alexander." And so Howard and I spoke for a minute, and from then on, I decided, well, let me start listening to the radio show for a while. Right. And so I became a fan for a short amount of time, and then I moved on.
Right. Fair weather fan, which is that's exactly the opposite. That's the way I feel about Imus. Of course, I didn't see him walking down the street and talk to him or anything, but but I do. My friend, his name's Brendan Murphy. He's a tennis player. He's a coach now, but he was big. He hurt himself, but he was like Wimbledon quality. He's good friends with Robin. They're like neighbors. So, when Howard goes over for a couple glasses of wine or whatnot, they'll hang out and chit-chat. And I just think it's cool. Unfortunately, he hasn't set me up to have a chat with Howard yet, but maybe someday.
She's going to get an interview with Robin.
Yeah, well,
you know what I find the most interesting, G. Keith, is that when you're walking down the street and there's Howard Stern and Robin, right? They knew who you were.
That's awesome.
Right. Which is a real thrill and honor for me, because even when I walk down the street and fans acknowledge me in some way, either a nod of the head or a wave, or they stare at you. Or someone comes up and says hello. Whenever that conversation or that that engagement is over, and I'm walking further down the street, I always, literally, verbally with my mouth, say, "Thank you, Lord, thank you, God," because a lot of people walk this earth and you never know they exist.
Right.
And I'm fortunate and blessed to know to have people know that I exist in this world. So I'm very fortunate. But let me say this. I would be remiss, though, if I did not give some acknowledgement to the man that got me started in radio, my mentor. He's deceased now, but Frankie Crocker. Frankie Crocker was the man that started Urban Contemporary Radio, and we started at WBLS. That was the guy that hired me when I brought the tape in. But he is the reason why I have become the guy, the media personality that I am. So I just wanted to give a shout out to those people who may be listening here in New York, who are familiar with Frankie Crocker.
Was he was on WBLS, right?
Yeah, he originally started on WWRL, and then he went to WMCA, crossed over from black radio to general market radio, WMCA, and he became one of the good guys there. And then
that was the top 40 station, right? The WMCA.
Exactly. Yeah. And then he was hired to come to WLIB FM, which we changed the call letters to WBLS. And WBLS became this legendary radio station that people would come from all parts of the world to sit in a hotel with a tape recorder then, one of those reel-to-reel tape recorders, and tape the format so they could take it back to France and England and even here in New York and Philadelphia, people tried to emulate the format. Mm-hmm. And then even in Chicago, they hired me to come to Chicago to bring the format to WGCI in Chicago. So I helped launch WGCI.
Well, and I think that the term chief rocker, right, which was also coined in that era, was because of Frankie.
Exactly. He was the chief rocker, Frankie Crocker.
Oh, that's awesome.
Rocker, Frankie Crocker.
I know you listen to so many like hip hop and stuff too from like the 80s. They used the terminology chief rocker a lot.
Yeah.
Africa Bambaataa has a whole song called Chief Rocker.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know that. Thank you for telling me that. Wow.
See, learn something new every day.
Oh man, that's such rich history. So, what station what station are you doing work for now? What are you up to now? Besides, I know you're doing Harlem America and your voiceover stuff, but you still do a little bit of on-air stuff at a station there, don't you?
Well, every once in a while, WVLS will have the legends come back and do an air shift, and so I did that back in December. And I haven't done anything other than I do a lot of announcing now for galas and big events, and so for the Apollo Theater, I'm the announcer for their gala fundraiser every year for the United Negro College Fund. I do that every year. They're big galas for 1,400 people, and
every time I see you, G. Keith, you're always somewhere doing something big. You got your 3-piece. Well, it's not even 3-piece suit. You got your, what do you call that with the cummerbund and all that? Your
the tuxedo.
Tuxedo. You got your tuxedo on. You're looking all sharp and snazzy. And you're always doing something fantastic. I really admire that.
Well, thank you very much. I've truly been blessed to still be of value to people who think that by having me in the house somewhere, either as the announcer or the MC or just as a guest, it warms my heart to know that people still place some value on me. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm glad of that. But speaking of tuxedos, I just recently told somebody the other day, I was looking at a lot of these photos that I have of me at events and things. I must have had about 13 different tuxedos over the years. And in fact,
That's
I
all?
get tired of wearing tuxedos.
You're tired of wearing them. That's great. I've never owned a tuxedo in my life. I've rented, but never owned.
Really?
Yeah. Never really had to, I guess.
Well, when you're a radio legend like G. Keith Alexander in New York City, you have to own a tux for sure.
Little old me out here in Arizona.
So what does a trend look like? I mean, as an old school guy looking at radio nowadays, and Hot 97, that's New York, correct? Right. So like those are new versions of top 40 and hip hop and those things that are kind of similar to what you guys paved the way. What do you see similarity wise between what you did versus what's happening like at Hot 97, and where do you think this goes in the future from a broadcast perspective for AM and FM?
Well, that's a good question. I don't see the similarities like we once had before. When I was really ensconced in radio, when I was really immersed in radio, the DJs were like the stars, the Pied Pipers. We told people where to go, what to do. Right. They followed us and so forth and so on. And then nowadays you get the comedians, you get the shock jocks, you get the rappers, and you get all these people now are really the stars of radio. So the regular DJ type person that
takes a back
built
seat.
their career working in radio, you don't see too many of them as much anymore.
Yeah,
So
I've kind of noticed that they take a group of station like Clear Channel or somebody or Cumulus who will own several stations. Instead of having
several hundred.
Yeah, a morning. I'm thinking in one area, like in one market. But you'll have like they'll take the morning show from the New York market, which then also gets played in New Jersey. It also gets played in Connecticut. It gets played in Miami or some other places. And that's the part of radio for me as a purist. I really hate to see, because you're losing that connectivity with your local community because you're not even listening to a jock that's in your area sometimes.
Exactly. A lot of them are syndicated on 70 or 100 radio stations around the country, and they're not local, so they don't have that local touch.
And there's so much talent out there.
But let me tell you one thing further. Clear Channel Radio, we used to call them Cheap Channel, but Clear Channel Radio at one point wanted to have about 25 jocks that they could do voice tracks all across the country, and they would put all of these hundreds of other disc jockeys out of business by having these 25 jocks just do voice tracks. So no matter what town you're in, if you're driving across the country, you'd still hear the same voice. So when that came in, our union tried to fight that because that they were going to just knock out so many different people. We won sort of, but then we didn't win sort of, because then they started doing that overnights around the country, and so as a purist like you are, that sort of changed radio for me as well.
Just a little food for thought. You remember years ago, we were very close to being the digital arm for Clear Channel.
Really? Oh yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah. We're very.
Maybe I shouldn't say I shouldn't have said cheap channel then.
No, you can say cheap channel because we didn't do business with them.
Because they were cheap channel.
That's exactly right.
Well, now they're all like iHeartRadio and iHeartMedia.
Yeah.
Clear Channel is, and they're like billions of dollars in debt.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Because they tried to buy up they bought up all these radio stations.
Yep.
And they at one time they had like 1,300 radio stations, and but that the debt kept going up.
Yep.
And so, and now, to tell you the truth, everybody wants to be online. So they still have all of these brick and mortar stations.
Yep.
But people are now gravitating toward online radio. And so
Exactly right. Welcome to Voice America.
Yeah, we watched.
There you go.
Radio Disney's right. What used to be next door to our studio here in Phoenix, and I was talking to the general manager over there as they were kind of leaving, and asking them like, why are you guys leaving the local market of Phoenix? Because they ended up selling the Radio Disney station, and guess who bought it? Clear Channel, and then Clear Channel turned around and sold it and turned it into like a Latino radio station with cumbia music and all that. And the general manager said, well, yeah, everybody's online. All these kids are on tablets, on this and that. And so they were shutting down their standard brick and mortar radio operations to focus on Radio Disney app like that you download on your phone. And so now they're programming that. They still have a Phoenix section in there, but it's all programmed with inside the app. So when you log in, then you can go, I go to Phoenix or LA or Denver or Las Vegas or whatever it is.
They don't need an office anymore.
Yeah,
it's just somebody in there.
They run all of it from LA. All 50 states are all now ran out of one location in Los Angeles.
Yep. Radio's changed so much over the years.
Oh, yes. But you guys have staked out your real estate, and that's great. And I'm getting ready to jump on your real estate, and that's even better.
And we are so happy to have you come aboard. I think what you're bringing to the table is just so valuable. And I think it's going to open up doors to, other potential networks down the road. So,
well, great.
Gee, Keith, I'm really happy you're coming aboard. We've got maybe a minute and a half left. So, what's next for G. Keith? Where are we going from here?
Well, we're going to hopefully be launching around the end of December, 1st of January, and we're going to build this channel, and we're going to push it to the edge, and then we're going to develop this network, and we're also going to have the from what Ryan has told me, we're going to have the television component as well at some point.
Will.
And so we're just going to create something that's so fabulous that everybody's going to want to get a piece of it, and we think it's just wonderful.
Agreed.
Yeah, 100%.
Agreed.
G. thanks again for being on. And I also want to give a big shout out again to Zapier, who sponsored the show today. Go check their website out, zapier.com/frequency. You get a 14-day free trial. Automate, make your life easier. Man, G. Keith, what an interesting conversation we had today, just talking about radio and really getting in depth with some of that history. It's amazing.
We could go very deep.
Thank you so very much, both of you. Thank you so very much. And let me just give a shout out to D. Daniels.
D. Daniels. That's right. D. We didn't have D in today. We should have, but yes, D was a catalyst and brought G. Keith to the table, and she'll be working with G. Keith very closely. So, good stuff, G. Keith. Thanks for being on the show today, and we will talk to you very soon, my friend.
Thank you so very much. You guys have a great day and a better one tomorrow.
Sounds good.
That's awesome. You guys, thank you for tuning in to Finding Your Frequency Radio right here on the Voice America Talk Radio Network. Check us out all over social media at Radio Ryan1, at Jeff Spinney 2, at Voice America TRN. We're all over your favorite podcast sites, so go download us, share us with your friends, give us a bunch of 5 stars because 5 stars are way better than 4. And we'll talk to you next week on Friday right here on Finding Your Frequency. Join Voice America and host Alex Fullick for the DRJ Fall 2019 in Phoenix at the JW Marriott Desert Ridge as we broadcast live Monday, September 30th from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific Time. The topics of the event are innovations in managing risk and resiliency. This is part of a 3-day event featuring the top industry experts designed to keep your organization at the forefront of risk management. For more information, visit drj.com/fall 2019 or join us live on voiceamerica.com/live events.